Hello, my name is Dr. Scott Young, and today I want to talk to you about my newest book. It is called How He Lived an Undead Life. Coming right up. Okay, so here's what comes out of this. I struggled with this book quite extensively. I remember when I decided I wanted to write this book of how he lived an undead life. I normally really am bad when it comes to book titles, except for this time. I knew the book title almost immediately. What I knew that I wanted to do is start inside of the tribulation. I wanted to start pretty late in the tribulation. One of the most fascinating parts is the fifth trumpet. These angels show up, or these demons show up out of the abyss. And out of the abyss, there is this fascinating circumstance where they're flying around and they sting people who don't have the mark, or the mark of God on their head. That's not the mark of the beast. That's anyone who doesn't have the mark of the seal of God on their forehead. Those are the people that would get stung. And if they're stung, they want to die, but they cannot die for 5 months. Here's the fascinating part. Late in that portion that it talks about the fifth trumpet, it says that the demons keep screaming out Apollyon or Abaddon. That's in Hebrew and Greek, and that means chief. Let me explain that just a little bit. Robert Southey in the early 1800s wrote The Three Little Bears. It's a kid's story. But he goes to Haiti and he studies this subculture of a chief. And the chief takes tetracycline and he blows it upon a person. So that tetracycline, he'll blow it on, and if he gets it in the right quantity, what will happen is that person will go into a coma. And at the time frame, obviously, people didn't have, modern medical abilities to know that someone was still alive. They would put him in a mausoleum. Now, if you're in Haiti, you can't put him underneath the ground because the water table's too high. So you'd put him in the ground and they would mourn that person. Within a couple days, this chief demon, or this chief guy, would go in and say, "Your soul is mine, I've got you." This is this fascinating subculture because he is the one that came up, Robert Southey is the one that came up with the word of zombie, Z-O-M-B-I. Now we call it zombie with an I-E, and that comes from the Night of the Living Dead with all the series and that you can kind of come up with. But here's the fascinating part about Apollyon or Abaddon. That means chief. If you have people who are dying but they can't die, they're going to find a way to die. Anyone who wants to suicide is going to find a way to have a suicide event. My wife's a psych nurse. She's watched so many people in their pain and suffering. They find it. They'll keep doing it over and over again. If you got shot in the head, you won't die from that. If you fall off a building, you're not going to die from that. And I wanted to take that kind of story and be deep in the tribulation. I think this happens approximately about a year and a half or so before the end of the tribulation. So I'd say about 18 months before the end of the tribulation, the fifth trumpet. And so in this book, my characters are driving down the road and they get stopped somehow, and he awakens. And my main character, he's walking down the road as his right arm is severed and blood has leaked out, but he has no idea how long he's been out. Derek, his girlfriend, now at that time wife, Tara, is gone out of the car. So he just keeps wandering down the road, and he sees two people coming up. They hit a pole. As they hit the pole, they shoot through the window. And he's watching a horror around. People are dying around him, but they're not dead. Every time Derek falls into a type of he passes out from sickness, and obviously he's so wounded, he goes backward in time, and we explain a little bit of the backstory of him and this tortured past that this young man has had. And he wanders through the city of Boulder, and he sees events of people shooting themselves and jumping off areas. And some of you are going to just be grossed out. I remember my publisher friend and my mentor, Sue Riddell, first read it. She goes, I had to take breaks from the book. And she said, but it was a really powerful book, but it is powerful because each time he wakes up, he smells a new smell. And we're not talking about a pleasant smell of a flower. We're talking about the grossest of smells, and that's what he wakes up with. Guys, if you're interested in the zombie subculture and you don't know enough about it, this is one way to jump into it and understand that the Bible is actually explaining the zombie subculture. It knew it from the beginning of history. Before we even knew what the word was, when John is trying to write this in the book of Revelation, from Revelation 1 or 9 verse 1 up to verse 13, no one even knew what that word was. Why would these demons fly around and call out chief? Because I think they're actually calling out zombie. And in my instance, I'm calling it the zombie trumpet. And you're going to learn some things about that last set of Christians. Now, some of you this is going to be a powerful event for you because you've been prepping, but you don't have a clue how bad that event really is. Every time I teach end time stuff, people want to say that the first half of the tribulation is going to be a peaceful time frame and the second half is going to be pretty bad. No, that first half is chaos, war, inflation, death. The next half is going to be hell on earth. He's going to turn everything from hell and pull it up upon the planet. It says in Matthew 24 that if he didn't limit the days, no flesh would survive. We're saying, to put it in another way, a friend of mine, Jeff Swanson, who writes the Plan Bible, he says it in a slightly different pattern. He said, if you just extend the days for one extra day, then no one would ever make it. No post-apocalyptic movie ever presents it in that kind of pattern. I believe that this is a powerful way of explaining it to you. If you're interested in the zombie subculture, this book is for you. But if you don't know why you are, it will explain it. So check it out. You can see it at drscottyoung.com. And just subscribe and you'll see more about my books here as well. Thank you so much.